Hi everyone, it's Dominic from the MS Guide. Thanks for joining us again. Today we've got an awesome guest. She's about the same age as me, roughly. She's had MS fairly short time now. She was diagnosed quite late, is already on her third DMT, and is now really happy with it. She runs an amazing podcast called Conversations with Candy. In fact, MS Conversations with Candy. But we're going to meet Candice right now. Hi, Candice. How are you doing?
Hey, Dom. How's it going? How are you?
It's really good, Candice. I'm really tired because I've been climbing, but at night's kind of tired. So can you tell us a bit about yourself, where you're based and how long you've had MS, all the usual things, you know?
All the good stuff, right? Yeah. Sure will. So my name is Candice Lewis, and I am in the United States. I live in Houston, Texas. For those of you who are familiar with the U.S., I live in Houston, where it's very hot and sunny most of the time, and especially now during this time of year. Yes, I was only diagnosed actually we're coming up on my 3-year anniversary. I was diagnosed in October of 2018, along with my MS anniversary, or MS anniversary as we call it. I'm also coming up on that pretty milestone birthday too, the big 5-5. So yeah, I'm an old lady here. You know, they usually say that the diagnosis time is between 19 and the age range is between 19 and 40 or something like that. Yeah. So I, was definitely at the very, very, very top end of that spectrum. So here we are. As soon as I was diagnosed, I jumped in and, tried to research and learn as much as I could about it, and became an MS advocate with the MS Society. And I have my podcast, as you mentioned, MS Conversations with Candy, where I have different guests on, and we just talk about day-to-day living as it relates to MS.
I think that's great. I know other people do things like that. I'll put the links in the description, so if anyone wants to listen to your podcast, which I think are kind of cool. Plus, you flattered me. You had me on, so I was.
I surely did.
I'm now a big fan. But so, Candice, you're 3 years into it. I'm 28 years into it.
Oh wow! Wow!
I never feel wow about it.
I know.
But I'm hoping to start my 5th DMT soon. I've started a video series about that. But I know you got started on one straight away. And can you tell us what it is?
Sure. So actually, when I was diagnosed almost 3 years ago, I was immediately put on Copaxone and did not have a great experience with Copaxone. I was on Copaxone 3 days a week, and I had such a bad experience that I was only on it for 2 months because I, started to get horrible, bumps and lumps and bruises, all over the injection site, so that by the time I rotated to the injection site the next time, I still had these horrible lumps. So
I hear you, Candice. I stuck with it for a year, and I looked like I've been shot with a shotgun the whole time. Exactly. And I just said to my nurse, this is just beyond, I can't cope.
It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And I, reached out to, in fact, I had my husband take pictures, and I sent those pictures to my neurologist. She said, oh no, absolutely not. So she advocated with me and for me. And I was then put on Ocrevus, which I loved. I loved Ocrevus. I did not have any progressing of my symptoms. My MS was very stable. However, with Ocrevus, I was having infusion reactions. So it would start to close my throat during the infusion, meaning, I would start these horrible coughing spells because my throat was starting to close. They would have to stop the infusion drip for 30 minutes, infuse me with more Benadryl, and then start me, start me on the drip again at a much, much slower rate, which meant it took me 8 hours my body 8 hours to accept the full dose of Ocrevus. So I am now on Kesimpta, which is a once a month injection, and I absolutely love it. No problems at all, and it's been great.
It's hilarious. I just interviewed Jackie, a friend of mine here in the UK. She's one of the first people in the UK to start on it, and she's like a Jehovah's Witness for Kesimpta. She wants to go door to door going, can I tell you the good news about ofatumumab? And
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, it's really good. Yeah, the ocrelizumab. I'm on Ocrevus,
yes.
ocrelizumab, same thing. That's what I love. That's what I've been on. I've declined it because I said I'm moving, but that's a different story. But when I was started 2 and a bit years ago in the UK, they wheeled in this poor woman who is there having a really bad attack that had hospitalized her. Started putting in, but she was having the worst coughing fits.
Yep,
And I know what you mean because
yep.
I saw her, and I'm thinking, I must be getting a placebo. It was just
I know.
nothing. And all I hear from you is you must be able to get really high on Benadryl if you cough that much.
And let me tell you, because they, before you take it, right, they give you steroids and they give you Benadryl. And then I also would have to take a Claritin pill as part of my pre-med, and
Right.
my throat would still close up. They put me on so much Benadryl that I had an adverse reaction. They'd come back to me and I'm sitting in my chair wide-eyed, like, hey, what's going on? How are you today? What are you doing? I was just totally hyped. I could not sleep. And the nurse would look at me like, oh my God, are you still awake? Oh yeah. No problem. Then I couldn't sleep for 3 days after that. Between the steroids and all the Benadryl, I had such an adverse reaction. I'd be awake for 3 days, trying to sleep. Body is tired, but could not sleep.
The Benadryl puts me to sleep. It's one of these. When I had an infusion, that was always one of the bonus parts. Was I got to have
No.
a government-sanctioned nap, I called it. Yeah, it was like I broke my leg really badly about 10 years
Oh,
ago. And
wow.
when I got morphine, I was just there thinking, this is like government-sanctioned heroin addiction. It's
I
fantastic.
know.
You can
And
be pure
Benadryl used to,
quality. Yeah.
absolutely. And Benadryl used to put me to sleep. Now it doesn't do it for me anymore. So, I used to have, allergies or an allergic reaction to something and pop a Benadryl and be able to sleep it off. Not anymore. That Benadryl keeps me awake. Yeah.
But the Kesimpta's doing it for you.
Doing it for me. I love it. In fact, I took my injection last Saturday night and it does not hurt. It's just a quick a quick stick. Nothing like Copaxone. Nothing like Copaxone. No reaction, nothing. 10 seconds, you're done until the next month. And it's very convenient and it works with my lifestyle. It's wonderful.
I think it's
I
going
don't
to change things a lot. I mean, it's in some sense you can say, well, it's just in the same class of drugs as Ocrevus, but
right.
certainly in the UK and things, the reduction in hospital costs. You don't have to get somebody in. You don't have to
Yeah.
sit there on your backside for 4 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it
Yes.
is,
Yes.
because that will cost them a fortune in hospital time and
Absolutely.
nurses and yeah, and it's just like, buff. Can
So
I ask
Dom, you
you one
bring
question? I forgot to ask Jackie.
okay.
You know the auto injector.
Yes.
Okay. Does that make a massive whacking, clunking noise?
It does. So this one is called a Sensi pen. So it's more of a pen. And so when you do the jab, it does make a click. It's not that loud,
All right.
clunky sound like the Copaxone. It's a click though. And it is kind of a loud click, but it's a
Right.
click. And it's 2 clicks because the first click is the first jab. And then the second click tells you when the medicine has been injected into you.
Okay.
So you cannot remove the pen until that second click.
Right. I'm asking because I got Rebif before Copaxone, and they gave
Ah,
me an auto injector, but it looked like some sort of part of a Barbie and Ken playset, and it was made such a noise. The first time I did it, I was there for about 30 minutes, holding against me, going, "You can do this. Don't be so weak. You can do this." And I clicked it. I nearly jumped out of my skin. It sounded like someone
I
had fired a
know.
weapon near me, and
So
then
Dom,
I
I
went to
have,
manual. I just took it. I just
oh
started injecting
no.
myself manually, much easier.
Oh gosh, you have I couldn't do that. But listen, if you want to see, I have one. They send you a training pin. I could show it to you in your guest if you want to see it.
I don't mind. I think people are going to think that I'm being paid by Novartis, but I don't really care.
I know, right? It's
Yeah.
I have one right here. I'm sorry, I know it just kind of messed with your whole show.
Oh, you don't
But
mess with my show, Candy.
I have the whole little training. It's a box and it has a training pin in there. And this is exactly what it looks like. It's a pin. And then you unscrew the cap.
Things have come a long way since I saw an auto injector.
And so you hear that click?
Oh, that's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was a second click.
So
So it's
just for the
just two
record,
little.
everyone, Candice didn't inject herself then. That was a
I
trick.
did not. This is a training pin. There is no needle here.
Okay.
This was fun, Dominic. I'm glad I had a chance. And I do not work for Novartis either. So just put that out there as
Frankly,
well.
if I could get some of their money, that'd be great. But
I know, isn't that right?
But this is
Isn't that
just
the
like,
truth?
I just think here's a drug which is coming on and people
Yeah.
are starting to get turned on to the idea of it. And I think it's probably going to get traction just because it's so damn easy. You don't have to go anywhere and do anything, it just turns up at your house and
Yes,
what?
yes. And you said something that was interesting, Dominic. When you go for your Ocrevus infusion, do you have to, is it a hospital stay for you?
Yeah, see, it's works slightly differently in the UK. They
Okay.
want to get infusion centers elsewhere. I think there may be a couple of places like Scotland or Cornwall. I'm not sure which are on the limits.
Okay.
But broadly, I mean, for me, I live near Oxford. I go into the main hospital. It's a room in the neuro ward. There'll be 3 or 4 of us there. Roche pay for a nurse, so for all the Ocrevus patients. So, but this poor lady, last time she was running around, there was 3 of us and we were laughing because she's doing our vitals one at a time.
Yeah.
And she said, oh gosh, but why don't you set a 15-minute alarm on your phone? And then we just did. And we were all laughing, all in the same room. She's going ding, 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 ding,
Wow.
ding.
Yeah, I know.
1 minute you're getting a thermometer stuck in your ear and
Yes.
your blood
Interesting.
pressure. Yeah. So it's
very interesting. Yeah.
I can tell you one thing. I
Yeah.
broke my collarbone once because I used to cycle a lot and that always makes injuries.
Yeah.
I was in hospital overnight for the operation and the blood pressure machine they just leave on your arm, the sphygmometer, the manual one.
And all of a sudden it starts to blow up.
And then you got the little thing on your finger and there's the machine that goes bing all night.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sleep. And I thought, well, given that I can't sleep and I really want to sleep and sleep's good for your health, I got up, I took it off my finger, I coiled it all up, I unplugged the machine, I just put it to the side.
Oh, wow.
Came in the next day and she was unamused. Yeah.
And
she
but you slept well, right?
Yeah, I said, number 1, I slept. Number 2, I'm obviously not dead because I'm still here and you're telling me off.
Yeah.
So
when I was diagnosed, I had, I first started to experience symptoms in September. And it took about
what was happening that you may go?
Yeah, I went numb, on my feet, and I went numb from my feet to my knees, and then eventually, the week later from my knees to my torso. And so I knew something was going on, went to my primary care doctor, and they sent me, right away to a neurologist, and she sent me to have a brain MRI and a spinal MRI. And when she received the results back from that, the next day she called me. She's like, listen, I see something on your spine. Let's go ahead and get a spinal tap. And when she told me a spinal tap, I knew something serious was going on because I was still numb, by the way. And after the spinal tap, I started to what I called, Dominic, I became a Google doctor. I started Googling,
Everybody does. Everybody does.
Because you start having all this stuff going on with your body and human nature, you want to know what it is. And so we all have what's called an online chart. And so as results started to come in on my medical online chart, I would copy the results and I would paste it into a Google search, and Google started to tell me a person with these results, most likely has multiple sclerosis. A patient with this result most likely, because my neurologist knew it was an autoimmune disease, and she was thinking possibly lupus. And so I was thinking, okay, this is either lupus or this is MS. So when I started to put those results into a search engine, I had a feeling she would say MS. So when she said it, although I wasn't surprised, it was still very jarring, to hear that news come from, from the expert, so, but I did get sent right away to the infusion center for steroid infusions for 3 months, for 3 days.
Candice, let me tell you, so the way it worked in the old-fashioned days for all
Yes, tell me, 28 years ago.
1994. So I have what they call the hermit sign. Go to the GP, who's like your family doctor, your primary care one. It stands for general practitioner in the UK. And I remember reading his writing upside down. He had very neat writing for a doctor.
Well, good,
and I saw the hermit sign, and I thought, got to find out what that is. And so I went into this hospital library because they used to have these things called libraries before the internet with all the books and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. We had encyclopedias back in those days too.
Yeah,
all that.
And I had to, you cut and paste. I had to take a piece of paper and a pen.
Yes, you did.
And then I had to get this sodding great medical textbook and sort of go to the hermit sign, and you open it, and it says, essentially, long story short, it's a very strong indicator of MS or the potential to have MS.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, hell's bells, this is not great news. And but there is no internet to go onto and start going, so what does this mean? Because we always joke here and say the second, either the internet is going to say most likely that you're going to die.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
When you start typing things into Google, if you keep going down that rabbit hole, you're going to die a slow and painful death, almost guaranteed.
Almost guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed. Yeah.
And MS, I would say it's like this 80-20 distribution curve. You know, the one with the lump in the top, because everybody says, what's going to happen to you, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, it's like this, 80-20. I said, so some people will have 1 or 2 symptoms in their life, and other people are going to be dead in 6 months. But they're the complete outliers. I said, most of us are in the middle.
Right.
I said, I just happen to be, thankfully, to the not so bad side of the middle. I'll be on the curve going up rather than the either the top, which is, you hear all these unpleasant stories, but then that's all anyone thinks about. I mean, when you told people that you had MS, A, how did you decide to? And then B, what sort of reactions do you get?
So that's a very interesting and very good question, because I initially, I only told my family. I told my family, my husband, of course, was in the room with me. And we told our children, and I told my mother. And then I did tell my immediate supervisor, my work, because I was taking off, these days because I had to go to all these doctor appointments. And so I just felt, a professional courtesy to let my boss know what was going on with me. Sorry, I keep clearing my throat.
That's all right.
But
you're allowed to. You still your octopus hanging over, isn't it?
I know, right? And so, but the bulk of the people in my life did not know that I had MS until I launched MS Conversations with Candy. I didn't tell, the masses didn't know until I had a podcast. They're like, what? You have MS? So that was a very surprising reaction. There were a few people, in my church group and things like that. So a lot of people were surprised, because I'm sure, like you, I get you look fine. You don't look sick. You don't look like you have MS. You look just great, and so, no, I don't look like I have MS. And you can't look at me and tell that I have MS.
Can I interrupt? What does looking like MS or I mean, some people, they say
exactly.
This. I'm not offended, because I think, yes, you're right. I don't have a crutch or a broken leg or a limp or
exactly. You're not in a wheelchair.
My face isn't hanging down because I've had a stroke, any of this stuff.
That's what they're looking for, because they have seen images of, like, I'm gonna tell you, my mother told me that that I don't know if you even know or even heard of the actress back in the day, Annette Funicello. She was an American actress, and she was on the Mickey Mouse Club years and years ago. Well, she had MS, and she had a very progressive form of MS, and she was in a wheelchair, and she eventually died from complications of MS. So that's the image that people are expecting when you tell them that you have MS. They're looking for, oh boy, the wheelchair or the walker, it's coming soon. There's not an understanding that that MS affects people differently. It looks differently in me than it does in you. We have different symptoms. Those symptoms may be the same, I should say, but they manifest itself differently, in each person.
Can I ask you a different question?
Sure.
The eagle-eyed viewers amongst the people out there may have spotted that I'm white and you're not.
What?
I know.
Really? Oh my
have you looked in the mirror lately? But it's
nope.
So I mean, here we would say black, but in the US you tend to say African American, don't you?
We say both, black, African American. Right. Yeah.
I don't.
We use both terms,
I don't want
and
to
I'm not offended by either.
Words.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So tell me about, is it different in the black community? Because I've spoken to quite a few Asian people, and it's so differently treated? Should we not treated medically, but when people get the news, how difficult it is? Is it different in that way?
Well, you know what? And so I'm going to go back to your previous question, how people reacted. Another reaction I received was, wow, my cousin has MS. Really? My neighbor has MS. Really? My mother-in-law, and
Yep,
this is
yep.
among
Bing,
the
bing,
Black
bing.
community. Yeah, so it's kind of a domino effect within the Black community. So I wasn't the first Black people that they had ever seen or heard of with it. I think the shock was more that I have it. But and as I began to tell people, and even as I began to interview people and talk to people on my show, maybe the first 5 or 6 people that I had on my show were people of color, were African Americans. I find it very interesting that you have interviewed and spoken with Asian people. I have not met an Asian person with MS. I find that very interesting. You are the second person from the UK that I have spoken to, and now the other person is an African American woman, and she's a younger lady. She's probably, I don't know, maybe in her 30s. I don't think she's 40, but in her maybe late 20s to early 30s. So it is definitely, we are here. I don't know if we have a strong representation, though, when it comes to research and things like that, but we are starting to make our voices heard. We're starting to really have a strong voice in the MS community.
I think it's been recognized that because clinical trials where the research comes from, and clinical trials need to recruit, and one of the big issues with clinical trials, because I don't know if it's because they seem to be run by white people, but it's recruiting of Black participants.
Right.
And then, there is the hangover from the, not Tuskegee, there was that big scandal of the research in the US. Can you remember the name?
I think you're talking about the Tuskegee experiment with the African American
with
males.
Syphilis. Yeah, with syphilis, where they were experimenting, they weren't told, they were just let it run. I mean, it was just horrendous.
Yeah, something like that. And I don't remember the details, everybody, but I believe you're on target.
Right. I confuse it with the Tuskegee 332nd Fighter Wing, or the all-Black fighter squadron in World War II, because I wrote a dissertation on that. Post part of my history.
Well, then you are the expert then, yes.
No, but that's airplanes. I can tell you about that, but I'm thinking, am I confusing? So yeah. So this is a real issue, and it's getting it out there, because if a drug works differently in somebody who is Black than white, then that needs to be known, because will one drug work better? Will your MS be treated better? Maybe with me, I respond better to one thing and you another, because of our race. We're trying to recruit more people onto the MS register in the UK, of which I'm part of, because Black people and Asian people are really underrepresented. But you can't put a gun to somebody's head. It has to come,
make them register.
At some stage, it's got to come from them. But then you ask, are they being well enough informed? Are the right things being said to the right people? I mean, it's publicity and it's engagement, because
I'll speak personally. I internalized that, and I didn't want people to know, because I didn't want to be treated differently. I didn't want people to say, oh, okay, there's the lady with MS. Because I don't need your assistance. I don't need help. I don't, I want to be seen as a strong, independent woman, so I don't want to be seen as being weak. So I think we possibly as women, possibly as Black people, or just everyone in general, we really internalize that information for a while before we start coming out with it and finding a place to be able to share it in our own way. So in my way, it was through advocacy, and in my way, it became through my podcast. So I really kept it in for at least 2 years. I kept it to myself.
Can I give you a top tip?
Please.
I learned something just before the pandemic. Went with my wife and my daughter to Canada, and there's this thing going, do you need assistance? And I was having I wouldn't say the worst time, but I was using a cane sometimes. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I ticked it.
Oh my God. At the
It's
airport.
wonderful.
Well, yes and no. Back to the do you want help? Yeah. We've got a wheelchair for you. We got this. I'm going, I don't need a wheelchair. I just, no. And it was,
Nope, they're gonna put
shut up, sit down. We got a wheelchair. It's like, oh, right. Okay. And I'm sitting there and then turns out different lanes through security.
Yep.
And all of a sudden,
Yep.
I felt like such a fraud on the one hand, but on the other hand, I'm thinking, this is awesome. This is like first class. It's just like,
It is.
come this way, sir.
But let me tell you, and so I've never done it, but I traveled with my MS support group leader, and she does need a wheelchair. And so we got wheelchair assistance for her. And so since I was her traveling companion, I was able to go through the good fast lane with her. And then we even requested a handicap room for her. And the room was huge, the bathroom was massive, and it was absolutely wonderful. And that tip I also gave to one of my listeners, or actually a gentleman and his wife that I interviewed on my show. And they stopped traveling because they felt like he couldn't travel anymore. I said, oh no, don't stop traveling. When you get to the airport, or when you make your arrangements, request assistance. And I told them, I said, it'll change your life. It'll change the way you travel, because they will make sure that you go through, a different security check and all of that. And you don't have to, they felt like he would be embarrassed. I said, no, you won't be embarrassed. It's very private. They take you to the side.
I felt like I was faking it, because I just needed a cane sometimes, not all the time. But they were like, it's either all on or all off. But
that's right. That's right.
I'm going to have to embrace this. And we're sitting on the buggy, and my wife, my traveling companion, and my daughter, and they're sitting on the buggy, and my daughter's going, this is awesome.
She loved it. Absolutely. And that's how I felt. I was the companion. I was like, oh, this is great. So I'm the one that should have felt like a fraud.
Big line up for security. I mean, it's for passport control. When we got to the airport, straight by into the same thing. The driver of this little buggy goes, give me your passports. We give it, and he just gives into the guy who goes, oh, in you go. And I think, oh, I should have become an international cocaine smuggler. I would have just been.
It's like when the kids were little and we would take them to the amusement park, and we would pay for the fast pass. So we never had to stand in the long lines at the amusement park. We just flashed our fast pass and we just went right on past the line, and everybody else is looking at us like, hey, that's no fair. How are you doing that? Yeah, exactly. Holler. We're out of here.
Well,
exactly.
There's got to be benefits of having a lifelong disabling illness.
There you go. You go.
Yeah, I think people need to own it, and just when it comes, we have an expression in this country is don't take the piss. So it means just don't try for too much.
Yeah, don't take
everybody
advantage.
says it. That's a little bit, but it's getting it, and I think it's harder for guys sometimes as well. It's very manly not to need any assistance.
Yeah.
And that's all it is.
So I agree with that.
But back to the whole racing. Do you come across the other Black people with MS open up to you, like especially young men, because you're Black? Whereas they wouldn't say it to me, they might say it to you. Do you get better, should we say, access?
So, and I only know of one, let me think. I can only think of one Black man that I know who has MS, and I only found out about him from his wife. His wife is my coworker, and and she I end up sharing with her at some point that I have MS. And one of my other coworkers introduced us because she knows that I have it, and her husband. So anyway, so I met him through his wife. He's not someone I would have met otherwise. He probably wouldn't have shared that with me. And so I was able to share information with him, about our MS group. And so in the group, there may be one or two other men who have MS, and there are only two of them who are Black. So and they are, and let me say this, they are, their MS is more progressive than mine. One of them is in a wheelchair and has a service dog. So that's our point of conversation. He has a service dog. And then the other gentleman is, he like uses a cane, and I interviewed him for the show. And so again, without knowing his wife, I probably would not have had access. But because I am active in my MS group, I do have access to other gentlemen. So yeah, that gives me a little access.
We are overlooking, and you'll get this, one of the most famous MSers and one that I used to love long before I even knew what MS was. And you know who I'm going to say? Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor.
Oh
Yep,
yeah, he was a
Richard
man.
Pryor.
He was
Yep.
hilarious.
I just told my daughter, well, she knows who he is, but I just told her just not even 2 days ago that Richard Pryor had MS. She said,
Right.
really? I said, yeah, he had MS.
Hey,
Interesting.
Candice, we're going all over the place and it's lovely. But I think you, right, with your podcast and me with the channel, know that people don't watch massive long things.
Right. Absolutely not.
So-
No.
So that's
No.
my really polite way of saying we're going to have to stop, even though we can keep chatting after I turn the recording off. But
I know what you mean.
look,
Yeah.
it's been so nice to have you all the way from Texas. I'll put all the links to your podcast in. And before I go, my wife always gives me grief for this. Please, everybody, if you've got this far, like and subscribe to the channel. Ring that little bell thing, then you'll get notifications when there's new videos. But they come out every Friday, noon GMT, which is British time. At worst, yeah, I'll put up some other ones, but Friday lunchtime, that's when the new video from the MS Guide is going to, as my daughter told me to say, drop. So,
Drop.
and oh yeah, apparently it drops. So, Candice, you take care. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dominic. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on your show.